Hey everyone, so we're about to get started now, and thank you all for joining. Don't worry, if you aren't joining, we'll be sending out a link to the video recording shortly after the session ends. So now I'd like to introduce our product marketing manager on Google Docs, Peter Harbison, and he's going to kick off our product training sessions today by giving you guys a really in-depth overview about Google Docs and walk you through a event idea that we would like to do on campus after you guys are equipped with all this knowledge and information about how to use Google Docs, and you can share that with everyone else on campus. So with that, I'll give it away to Peter, and stay tuned for more of these product training sessions after this.
Hi everybody, as Mary mentioned, I'm the product marketing manager for Google Docs. I also cover Google Sites and Blogger. So I'm going to now share my screen with everybody, so if things start changing, that's what's supposed to happen. Let me quickly do this. The reason I'm sharing is because I'm going to be sharing from a Google presentation. So, can everyone see this? I hope they can. So, I'm going to be talking about Google Docs today. And really simple, this is what I'm going to be going through. Just some introduction and benefits. I'm not going to get too detailed into the features because I think a lot of you have used Google Docs in the past. I'm going to talk about some really exciting new back-to-school features that came out in the last 2 months. I'm going to go into some college-specific Google Docs content that we already have available. I'm going to do a deep dive in the template gallery and why we should be thinking about this and why it's cool. And then lastly, Google Docs activity and the free swag we're sending you, which is probably the most exciting part. So, Google Docs, like the kind of goal of Google Docs is to have a world without attachments. And I think there's 3 things you can think of at a high level that Google Docs does. It lets you team up on the same document with friends, classmates, and professors. It lets you access your docs anywhere, anytime. And easily create your docs for school and play. And I think that's one of the most important things to emphasize is that Google Docs is not only great for classroom situations, but it's also great for clubs, for events, and for anything under the sun. So, what are some of the key benefits of Google Docs? And one thing I want to note about this is these are based on interviews from students, these benefits, and they're very specific to college students. So it's ideal for on-the-go note-taking. One of the advantages of having access to each Google Doc at any computer is that you can take notes in one place, and whether you have your computer with you or not, you can continually update that document. They're searchable. Revision history keeps track of every change. If you ever made a change to paper and not liked it and then said, oh no, what am I going to do? I don't remember what I said before. That's not a problem with Docs. Web-based, this is a pretty obvious one, but you can access it anywhere. And we back it up for you, and that's also really nice. I know I lost a paper in college. That was really fun. And then collaborative, there's no more attachments. And the best part about collaboration is there's no more gatekeeper of information. Like if you're working on a study guide group of 10 people, you don't have to have one person in charge of putting it together. You can share a doc and have 10 people add it. It makes it feel like it's more open and there's less, it helps everybody. And then lastly, just think of, there's a lot of great ways to use Google Docs, and we're not going to go over all of them today, but just think about that. So anyway, what are the things that you can do with Google Docs? One thing is create documents. These can be used for paper, research, meeting notes, study guides, and much more. It's the heart of Google Docs Suite. It's also the simplest. It's very similar to Word, except for it's online. Spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are great for keeping track of data. Some common use cases include grade tracking for TAs, planning events for clubs or teams, and then anytime you're tracking information with a large group of people. What's nice about spreadsheets is real-time presence, which means you can see the cells other people are editing. So if you send it out to 10 people and you have 10 people editing at the same time, you can see where they're at, and that's a very useful feature. I'm blazing through all this because I'm assuming most of you already know this. If we have questions, we can do that at the end. Presentations. What I'm doing right now, I'm actually using a Google Doc presentation, and you can do just about the same stuff you can do in PowerPoint. It's a little less powerful, but it's great because you can share with other people. It's really easy to use, and then it's online and you can access anywhere, so it's great for school presentations. All right, the template gallery. This is one thing that I really want to highlight today, and we're going to go more in depth, but briefly, it's not an editor, but it's really important because the template gallery is inspirational, and it allows people to see how others are using Docs in their day-to-day life. And it sort of opens up the possibilities that you weren't aware of. So, for example, if you ever thought of creating an end-of-the-year's ward form for your dorm or for your house, well, there's an example right here in the screenshot of that. So if you look at the template guide, like, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to try that. And then rather than starting from scratch, you can start from a point that's already pretty well developed. So we'll go into that in more detail later. And then lastly, of the Google Docs stuff that's available is forms. And for me, this is the most useful feature of Google Docs for college students, and the one I use a lot internally at Google. And one of the reasons why I really like forms is that it automatically puts all the data into a spreadsheet, which means that you don't have to do any extra work. You can then also manipulate the data really easily, and the forms look good. They're really easy to create. If you haven't created a form before, I definitely recommend you try it. There's a lot of cool forms features I'm going to talk about as well, and the activity we're going to be talking about at the end also involves forms, because I think it's really a great entryway into Docs. So, what do we have new that got cooking in the Google Docs kitchen? The first thing I want to talk about is shared folders. This actually came out only a week ago, last Monday, and it was the most requested feature the last 2 years. And it makes sense because rather than having to share an individual doc with a certain group of people every time, you now can share a folder with, say, your project team, and then every time you add a doc to that folder, it works like you'd expect. They now have access to that document. So it really simplifies the whole sharing model. It's shared folders online in your docs list. It simplifies the process, and it's really powerful. It's not necessarily a sexy feature, but it's really exciting, and we're really happy about it, and the feedback's been really positive. So I think for shared folders, just telling people, hey, do you know there's shared folders available in Google Docs is pretty much enough. So next, translation and spreadsheets. It's what you think it is. Basically, there's a new function that translate that allows you to translate things from any language to any language. Well, not any language, but like 50 languages that Google Translate supports. And this includes the ability to detect the language. So you can imagine a really cool use case of you collect a form with comments in 50 different languages, and then using a spreadsheet, you can automatically translate those into any language. And I've included a link to the template. This presentation will be available later, and you'll be able to click on the template right here, and you'll be able to try this out for yourself. But it's really cool, and it's fun. And I think there's some possibilities for even cooler use cases on campus if you think of them. Same thing, but in Docs. Translation Docs works a little bit differently. There's two options. One of them is there's full document translation. You see that picture on the right. If you have the use case we gave here is there's a student who wants to share, a younger student who wants to share with their grandmother who only speaks Chinese. They can translate that into Chinese and then share it with their grandmother, which is really great. Another thing here is you can now translate individual phrases or specific words, and you can have them defined, and this is really helpful in foreign language classes. Moving on, page break and go to page in forms. This is, as I was talking about earlier, forms is really, really cool, and this is probably one of the most important features that we've come out in a long time, in that it really allows you to customize your form and put it at a new level. And it's the only form creation tool out there that allows you to do this for free. So the way to think about page breaks, go to page forms, is that we've introduced the concept of logic branching. So if I ask a question like, are you a teacher or a student? And you say teacher, then we give you a completely different set of questions than if you answer a student. One thing that's really cool is the two interns who worked on this feature, they create a whole choose-your-own-adventure, complete with the mystery, like what do you do next, etc., all using this new feature. It was 50 pages and really complicated, but it was easy to create using this new tool. We can't publish it because it used copyright materials, but it gives you an idea of what the power of this new feature. I think it's a really killer feature for surveys of students, like if you're doing a survey for a class, if you're just trying to get information for a club, if you're trying to figure out whether we're doing a party and we want to do food and drinks, you can separate out like, okay, now that you said you're going to give us drinks, which ones you're going to give us, etc. So really powerful, useful for a lot of different things. Definitely the most exciting feature in my mind. Superscripts and subscripts and presentations. This is sort of what you'd expect. Now you can do what you should have been able to do before and create presentations for science class using presentations. This is an example slide for a chemistry class. Pretty simple, but a nice little feature. Print as EndNotes. This is another one of those we need to have, and we just added it. And some classes require printing EndNotes rather than footnotes. And before we didn't support this, and now you can. There's a little check mark, print footnotes as EndNotes in the print dialog that you can select. So another So if you notice, a lot of these features are smaller but important for students, and that's sort of what we were doing. We were focusing on student-specific features for this time period, the last 2 months. And then lastly, the feature I want to talk about last is equation editor in Docs. And if any of you are familiar with LaTeX, this is sort of what powers this. It's great for writing math and problem sets in Docs, for math papers, and it's potentially a feature that can really explode in usage and how popular it can be, because it's much easier to turn in a paper, a math paper in particular, that looks nice, and it's nice that you can also collaborate. So LaTeX, that's not possible. So it's sort of bringing that functionality. And what's cool is I don't know anything about LaTeX. I was not a math major, but I was able to use this equation editor with no problem because there's all the symbols and you can select stuff. So it has the power of LaTeX, but it's also really easy to use. So what's available right now? Google Docs content on the web that you can just point to students to if they want to learn more. The first thing that is available is a Google Docs back-to-school landing page. And Google Docs Summer Intern built this. And you can see that it's designed for students. The copy is more student-specific. There is a video that's college-specific. I recommend you watch it. I'll be talking about it a little bit later. And then there's the tips and tricks section below. And this section is great because it's tips that students gave us. Like, this is what they thought was really cool about Docs. And we just put them in one place. We kind of aggregated them. It gives a lot of great use cases, like make collaborative study guides, plan a trip, chat while you work, need surveys for classes. So if you want to if someone just says, oh, I want to learn about Google Docs, this is probably the best place to point them to start. And it's a lot more customized than docs.google.com, so that's where I'd send them. So another thing that I think is great is the spreadsheet art video. If you're giving a demo of Docs, if you're at a fair and something, this is a great video, and I'm going to try playing it now. WebEx is has about a 1 or 2 second delay, so the video will be out of sync with the audio, but I don't think it's going to matter. So, without further ado, the spreadsheet art video. So if you're wondering how we did that, it actually took 4 people 14 hours to create that video, to actually do that. So that was created in spreadsheets. So none of that's fake, or it's really happened. It was created about a year ago by the Google Docs marketing team as a way to just generate excitement about Google Docs. But it's also a great way to show collaboration. As you can see, that there are 4 people that were editing simultaneously. You can see their cells moving. So that's one video that I think another great resource for college students. Next is the Google Docs Love It video. This was created by the summer intern. I'm not going to play it right now, and the main reason I'm not going to play it is that the music is not going to make as much sense out of sync, and it's really hard to follow over WebEx. We tried it earlier. So I recommend going and watching this, sending it out to your friends. The best place to find it is either docs.google.com/college, or it's on the Docs homepage too, docs.google.com. And it basically shows the chronicling of a student who needs a little help with his love letter. All right, next up, the template gallery. And I mentioned earlier, the template gallery is really important, and you're probably wondering why it's really important. So let's go over that. Templates make Docs a lot easier to use. So rather than saying, oh, I want to create a resume, I have to create it from scratch, there's a resume template that you can start from. If you want to create a presentation with a certain background, there's a presentation that already has that background, et cetera, et cetera. So really what templates do is they make life easier, and they give the realm of possibilities that are available. So we have a lot of customized templates already available that are specific to RAs, TAs, and student leaders, and I'm just going to run through these. You can find these links on docs.google.com/college. They'll also be available on the site and here. And what I recommend you do is, if you know an RA or a TA or you're one yourself, try out these templates and see if they help you. So some of the examples of RA-specific templates are a dorm event RSVP form. So you can find out who can go, who can drive, who can do all this in one place. A resident assistance reimbursement form, rather than having to create all the columns yourself, you can start from something, a template. Dorm welcome form, dorm events idea form, resident assistance citation record, weekly dorm meeting notes, end of the year work form. So there's a lot of things that are available. What I think is great is, and one thing I'm going to tell you later is, if you have ideas for great templates for RAs, please let us know and we'll add them, because we're always trying to make as many templates as possible. So next, teaching assistant templates. So these are what you'd expect: a teaching assistant class attendance record, just a simple spreadsheet. Grade tracking file, similar thing, spreadsheet. Term validation is great because it just makes it easier to do that. Course syllabus, another good example of how you can simplify stuff. And then lastly, Class 101 Study Guide. This is a great way to get for teaching assistants to then share with their students so that they can all submit their notes in one place. Student leader templates. So a lot of people are student leaders or active in their student clubs, and forms in particular is great for student leaders. So you can send out, if you want to do a trip planning, just send out a form that asks for all the information. You get all of it in one place. You have a club event request, you can just ask club members what they want to see happen. And of course there's a lot of other things listed here. But I think the point is there's already a breadth of great templates out there, and I recommend you use them. And again, if you want to find them, we have links available in many different places. And then if you have cool templates that I mentioned earlier, please let us know. We're always trying to highlight the best ones, and we can even add them as Google, which gives them more, they're more likely to get noticed, which is great. Anyway, moving on. So let's get to the really fun stuff, which is the Google Docs activity and swag. So what have we sent you? I don't know if anyone has received this yet, but we're sending you some fun stuff in addition to an idea. So the suggested activity is to raise awareness of forms. And again, if you want to do something else, that's okay, but this is what we think is the easiest thing to do. So why forms? And we talked about this earlier, but I'm going to reiterate. Forms make it easy to collect opinions from classmates, student group members. Forms are easy to use because the data is automatically collected, and Forms really just one of the best survey tools out there. It has a lot more functionality than SurveyMonkey, and it's a lot easier to use. And a lot of people don't know about it, so just if they see a form, they know about it. That's sort of half the battle. So here's some things you can do in Forms at a very high level. You can do a student group welcome form, you can call it vet requests, you can use logic branching, I explain that later, student-teacher option. You can also fill out forms inside email. So if everyone in your school is using Google Apps and they're using Gmail, if you send a form to that address, the form appears in the email. So you don't have to send them to a page to fill it out. They can just fill it out in their email, click submit, and it works. That's a really cool feature. So what are we sending you? So we have sent each school 72 Google Docs water bottles that we're going to ask you to give away. You can keep one for yourself as well. And we're also sending you some American Apparel t-shirts that say Google Docs on the front, and on the back say no attachments. And there's a little X out of a paperclip, which is the attachment icon, with the docs.google.com/college. And whenever you're doing an event around Google Docs, feel free to wear those. You can also wear your ambassador's shirt. We're excited about this. I think it will be a great way to make students excited about Google Docs, and it's fun to give stuff away. So we're happy to be giving you stuff to give it away. So what we want you to do is give these Google Docs water bottles while generating trackable buzz. So here, the suggested activity that we've come up with, and feel free to modify it, change it as you see fit, is to send out a form to people via Facebook, via your House of Dorm lists, and then get people to respond, and then give a random selection of them, 50 to 72 of them, water bottles for responding. So I have a Google form ready that it uses logic branching. That's a Google Docs type of survey that we'd like you to customize. So that you customize the introduction message from you, the ambassador. So something like, my name is so-and-so. My name is Peter Harbison. I'm the ambassador for this school, and I'm really excited about talking to you about Google Docs. Here's a survey that kind of teaches you about Google Docs while also asking you about it, or something along that line. And then also customize confirmation message if you want them to do something. If you have an event to go to, if you have an event planned, you can put that like, thanks for filling this form. If you're interested in learning about Google Docs, here's an event we're hosting with the information. What our goal is to get 500 unique form responses, and the reason, this is a pretty arbitrary, but it's something around 5 to 10 times the number of water bottles. That's how many people we want to reach. I think this is going to take about 3 hours of your time, about 30 minutes to customize, send out the form, and then really nothing until you wait for people to pick up their water bottle for 2 hours to set up a time. So once you've collected all the forms, all you have to do is give out the free water bottles. And it's pretty simple. If you want to incorporate this into an event, if you want to do something different, that's also great, as I mentioned. But this should be pretty fun to do, and that's why I like it. And I'm hesitant to try this, but I'm going to. And I click this, see what happens. Everyone can still see that. Yes. No, it's not working. Okay, no, yes it is. Okay, so this is the actual template, and you can see here, and I'm going to make it go live just so you can see the form. So if I enter my address, like, I don't know, I actually don't have a school address anymore, and then I say, ooh, I use Google Docs, and then I just continue. And what's nice is now all the rest of the questions of the form are specific Google Docs, and we have a message. Cool, can you tell us more about how you use Google Docs? Ask some questions. Let's say you use documents and presentations, and you don't know about forms and surveys. Again, customized to tell you some information about the product. And let's go back a little bit. If we press no, it's a completely different survey. This is asking them sort of general, like, what else do you use for your word processing thing? So again, this is just a sample. Feel free to customize this to your heart's content. Feel free to do a completely different survey, but it's just sort of a way to start off. And what you do is, going back to this edit form, is you can customize this with some information, and then if you click more actions and click edit confirmation, you can then change the message at the end. So you can say, for example, we have an event happening next Tuesday, please join us. And then sincerely, ambassadors. Great, no spelling errors. So, going back, that's really the main activity. And some questions. Can I give the water bottles away at an event? Yes, feel free to give the water bottles away at an event if you don't want to do the form activity. And, you know, just keep in mind the goal is to raise awareness, but do whatever you think is really cool with these water bottles, however you want to generate buzz. If you want to give them to some RAs and TAs, you know, are passionate about docs, to encourage them to use forms, if you want to give them to a student leader, that's great. Just send us pictures. Send us a way to show that people are enjoying their water bottles. And we love numbers at Google. You probably all know that, but numbers are great if we can have that. So I think that was it for my Google Docs. I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions. And we have Joelle here as well, and she is on the Google Docs team. So we've got 2 Google Docs team members who can answer your questions. So I guess we'll start doing that. I think we're using Moderator to do that.
Yeah, so a couple of quick things. Thanks so much to Peter for giving that great overview, and hopefully you guys found it helpful and learned some new things. So yeah, for the question and answer portion, we're going to do it similarly to how we structured it for our last training session. Basically, if you have any questions about docs or about anything else going on, feel free to use the WebEx window. Now that Peter's no longer going to be presenting, you should be taken back to the WebEx window. You can type your question into the Q&A portion, and we can definitely take advantage of having Joelle and Peter here to answer any questions you guys might have. And Alex, Kira, and I can answer questions about anything related to the program or events you guys are planning on doing, anything like that. A quick note about what Peter had mentioned about your event and tracking success. So you guys should all by now be really familiar with the site that we put together for you guys. So you can find easy access to to your school's photo album and also to the event success form. So that's a great place to send send in your pictures, obviously, but also to send us numbers. So Peter mentioned we want to be able to continue giving you guys opportunities to do events like this and to get cool swag like this as we continue to add more products into your knowledge base. So if you guys, the more you guys are able to show us how successful these events are and how many students you're reaching on campus, the more likely it's going to be that we'll be able to continue to fund these kinds of things and come up with these kinds of cool things for you to do. So it's definitely important that you can help us prove that these events are successful and fun and engaging to you guys and also the students on campus. So.
And have fun while doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, it doesn't look like anyone.
So the first question is, are there plans for incorporating larger dictionaries and or grammatic suggestions like Word?
Well, we can't talk about future releases, but we're always working on things to make the product better for students. And so any feedback you give us, I will definitely direct right back to the product team and tell them kind of what students want. And if you hear from students, if you have some suggestions yourself, please let us know. Yeah, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, we have a product ideas page now. So I think, you can submit suggestions there, but also I think if through Peter or Miriam also is a good way. We definitely take user feedback really seriously. So yeah, your feedback is really important.
Next question.
So could you, sorry, I just moved down. Let's see. People are concerned about privacy issues with Google Docs. Can you explain or tell me how I should explain how Google preserves privacy of the content?
Okay, that's a good question. I think in general, people are concerned about things in the cloud. They feel less safe because they don't have control of them. And I think what's interesting is that in general, 99.9% of the time, the cloud is more secure because there's a lot of security in browsers. For example, if you have complete control of access of your docs. When you create a new doc, the only people who can access it are you. And our credentials work, and no one else can access it unless you share it with them or you show them your computer. And if you share it with someone, then only those people can see it. If you share it with someone, then give them the opportunity to share with others, then theoretically it could be shared more broadly. But in terms of security and data being lost or data being mishandled, that doesn't really happen. And I think it's more of people need to feel comfortable with things in the cloud. And I think that people feel comfortable with their email on the cloud, but they feel less comfortable with docs right now. So it's more of reassuring them that we take this really seriously. We think security and everyone feeling safe with their things in the document list is basically the #1 priority, and we're constantly doing that. So I think that's the kind of message I would convey is we are thinking about this. This is the most important thing, and everything we do kind of builds upon that basic structure that you need to trust what we're doing, and we value that greatly.
Okay, the next question, are there plans or is there a way to combine Google Docs accounts, so your personal and school accounts?
There is no way to combine your Docs account and your school account currently. I know that's a very commonly requested feature. It's a very challenging technically, and that's why it hasn't been solved. I think the simplest way to do it is now the way to do it is create a shared folder, put all of your docs in the shared folder, and now you've essentially done the exact same thing. So there are ways around it, but there's no way to merge doc lists.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And you can, like bulk select a bunch of your docs, put in a folder, and share that folder. So it's, sorry, I have a cold, so I'm sorry if I sound a little bit, my voice sounds weird. Yeah, so it's much easier, as Peter says, there's no way right now to merge accounts, but it's becoming much easier to quickly get all of your docs into both accounts.
Okay, so another question we have, if I give access to a document to someone who does not have a Google account, can they access it using their email somehow? It seems to me that they need to create a Google account. It's not taught very clearly. Also, it would be really cool if we could access it with a non-Google account, even once with a special token sent an email link. It's a great point. The email, the user experience for sending out emails is not great. And and we are well aware of that, and we are trying to make this better. I'm actively working on this right now in terms of just making those emails a lot better and easier to understand. Okay, next question. If I give access to a whole Google group, will new group members, i.e. that joined after the invite sent, get access to documents as well? Also, there should be a list of Google documents that are shared with the whole group.
What's the document?
That sounds like a check changes. Yeah, this is a very, very popular request. And, you know, like Peter said, we can't talk about upcoming launches, but in the edit page, you have to go to revision history, but there is a way to do it. It's just not, you know, how you see it like on Word.
All right. Is there anything cool you can do on Google Docs on mobile Android? Right now, you can view all of your documents on Android, but you can't write, and you can't edit stuff. And that, again, we can't talk about what's up and coming, but it's something we are aware of is a gap, and we're always working on ways to make things better. What's next for Google Docs? Are there anything we can share? We can't share details of what we're doing next, but we do have a lot of things in the pipeline. For example, last week we came out with shared folders. There's a lot of things that are that level of exciting or more exciting coming up, and we're really excited about that. There's been a lot of innovation and feature development in the last 2 or 3 months, and I think that's going to continue. Do you have any other questions?
It looks like that's all we have in terms of questions, but you know, obviously this isn't the only opportunity you guys will have, or everyone has, to ask questions of Joelle and her team and Peter. So if you guys do have questions, Joelle, what's the best place for them to go?
So like contact me or just the team. We have a help forum that anyone can go to. You have to be a member, but you can, if you want to post, but you can read all the discussions there. And there's a lot of different subsections. You can ask how do I type questions. If you have a problem, you can post about your problem. And there's also just talk about anything related to docs. And you can get to that help forum. If you just search for Google Docs Help Forum, you'll find it, and also in our Help Center, it's linked from the left now. And there are guides in there. They're Google employees. I'm one of them. And so we, you know, we're there to field questions. And we also have other users in there that know a lot about the product, and they answer a lot of the questions, any questions you may have.
So great. With that, I think that we're probably ready to wrap this session up. But do keep in mind that we'll be sending you guys the video recording as well as the presentation that Peter used and the form template that you'd like to use. So definitely start thinking about your doc-specific events to do on campus, always keeping in mind showing results, showing photos, and sharing the success that you guys have on campus, because we're really excited to have you be kind of the voice of Google, and in this case, Google Docs on campus.
Yeah, and if you don't get any of the T-shirts or the water bottles in the next 5 or 6 days, that's not good. We should have got them, so please let us know, and we'll figure out and make sure what happened and make sure we get them to you very soon.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much, and hopefully you found that useful, and stay tuned for all of the follow-up to come from this.
Thanks, everybody.